You don't fall in love with a woman. You fall in love with what she represents. A symbol, a story, a doorway you haven't dared to open within yourself. Carl Jung warned us, you do not see women as they are. You see them as your soul demands them to be, and that is the beginning of the trap. Because most men today are not entering relationships. They're entering projections, and what they call love isn't connection. It's possession. Possession by the part of them that is still unformed, still unconscious, still waiting to be mothered, rescued, completed. It doesn't begin with her. It begins with the anima, Jung's term for the inner feminine, the intuitive, emotional, symbolic dimension within every man. She is not evil, but she is powerful. And if unintegrated, she becomes dangerous. Here's how it works. You meet a woman. You feel pulled, obsessed, like she understands you without words, like you've known her for lifetimes. But she doesn't know you. She knows the story you've projected onto her, and you don't love her. You love the feeling she gives you, the brief illusion that your soul is complete. This is what Jung called psychic possession. Your anima, the unconscious feminine inside you, has taken over. She isn't dialogued with, so she gets projected. And the woman in front of you becomes the canvas. Your lost sensitivity, your suppressed creativity, your unclaimed emotional life. It all gets assigned to her. And because it feels so overwhelming, so spiritually charged, you mistake it for fate, for divine connection, for love. But it isn't love. It's desperation wrapped in mystery. That's why it never lasts. Because she isn't a goddess, she's a person. But you've turned her into a symbol, and the moment her reality breaks your fantasy, you collapse. This is why heartbreak feels like death, because when she leaves, it's not just her you lose. You lose the part of you she made you feel temporarily connected to. This is the core of Jung's dark truth. You're not falling for her. You're falling into your own unconscious. Every man carries a feminine within, not just emotionality, but the soul's mirror. And when that mirror is cracked, when it hasn't been claimed, it hijacks your romantic life. It makes you idealize the unavailable. It makes you chase the chaotic. It makes you confuse emotional addiction with love, because you're not looking for her. You're looking for you, the version of you that never got to speak, the tenderness that was shamed, the inner poet that was silenced, the emotional clarity that no one mirrored back to you. And until you reclaim those parts, you will keep falling for women who carry them for you. But they don't want to carry them, not forever. And they shouldn't have to, because eventually, she gets tired of being the fantasy. She gets tired of being the healer, the muse, the mirror. And you get resentful, not because of who she is, but because she stopped playing the role your soul wrote for her. That's when obsession turns into blame, when longing turns into manipulation, when heartbreak becomes punishment. And this is where the wound deepens, because instead of asking, what part of me am I projecting, you ask, what's wrong with her? And the cycle continues. This is why so many men today feel emotionally starved. They were never taught to build a relationship with their own inner feminine. They were only taught how to seek it in others. And so they live in a loop, seek approval, perform for attention, adapt to stay chosen, collapse when it ends. They don't fall in love with women. They fall in love with the parts of themselves they've disowned, temporarily brought to life through a beautiful face and a validating presence. But it's never sustainable, because no woman can carry the weight of your unlived soul, what the anima really wants, and why she'll ruin you if you ignore her. The anima does not want a girlfriend. She doesn't want a wife. She doesn't even want romance. She wants your soul. And if you ignore her, if you keep projecting her onto women without integrating her within, she will make your life collapse until you finally listen. Jung never said the anima was gentle. He said she was necessary. Necessary for wholeness. Necessary for creativity. Necessary for depth. But also dangerous when unrecognized. Because when you don't listen to her, she doesn't go away. She splits and starts speaking through obsession. She whispers through your fantasies. She haunts your choices. She seduces you with emotional highs and punishes you with emotional emptiness. You meet a woman and feel seen, but it's not her. It's your anima, projected, and suddenly she becomes everything. The one who'll complete you, the one who'll heal you, the one who'll finally make you feel enough. But she won't, because she can't. She was never supposed to. The anima isn't found in the woman you date. She's found in the work you refuse to do, in your suppressed sensitivity, your intuition, your fear of emotional intimacy, your forgotten art, your poetry, your stillness. She lives in the part of you that you were told wasn't masculine enough, the part you were taught to ignore, dismiss, perform over, and now, because you never met her within, you seek her in every woman you meet. That's why every relationship feels either intoxicating or disappointing. You're not meeting women. You're meeting your wound, dressed in desire. And it never ends well, because when the projection fades, the reality can't hold the weight. You expected her to save you, to awaken you, to give your life meaning. But that meaning was never hers to give. This is the anima's paradox. She is both your deepest hunger and your greatest test. She wants you to notice her, but not through obsession, through integration. She wants to be claimed, not chased, recognized, not romanticized. Jung warned, if a man does not consciously engage his anima, she becomes autonomous. She acts on her own. She pulls you into fantasy. She distorts your perception of women. She becomes the seductress, not in them but within you. You're not falling for her. You're falling for your own disconnection. So what does she really want? Not to be projected, but to be understood. She wants you to stop outsourcing your emotional life, to stop expecting a woman to carry the weight of your unlived potential. She wants you to sit with the loneliness, to write the poem, to cry without shame, to create without needing applause, to feel deeply without needing a woman to validate it. She wants you to become a man who is sovereign in his softness, so present in his depth that no beauty can seduce him out of his clarity. Because when you finally integrate her, you stop looking for completion. You stop calling chaos chemistry. You stop confusing spiritual hunger for romantic attraction. You become someone who chooses love, not someone who is possessed by it. You stop chasing the woman who makes you feel alive, because now you are alive, with or without her. The men women use, and why it's always the ones who need love most. You want to know who gets used the most? It's not the man without looks. It's not the man without money. It's the man who needs love the most. The man who seeks salvation in the feminine. The man who doesn't realize he's handing over his soul, not just his time. Carl Jung saw this clearly. A man ruled by his unconscious anima becomes a mirror for the desires of others. He doesn't lead, he adapts. He doesn't choose, he performs. He doesn't speak from truth, he speaks to be chosen. He becomes pliable, emotionally moldable, a shape shifter for affection. And women feel that. They may not say it, but deep down, they sense when a man is trying to earn love, instead of embodying it. And when they do, respect fades, attraction warps, power shifts. Here's the brutal truth. If you need her attention to feel valuable, she will become the source of your worth. And the moment she knows that, she controls you. Even if she never lifts a finger, even if she's not manipulative, even if she loves you. She controls you by default, because your inner compass now points to her, not to purpose, not to presence, not to clarity, but to approval. And that kind of man is not loved. He is used for attention, used for comfort, used for emotional validation. And when he stops pleasing, he gets discarded. Not because women are cruel, but because neediness is not intimacy. It's a transaction, and no woman, conscious or not, respects a man who gives up his spine to be kept. This is what Jung meant by archetypal possession. The man is not dating a woman. He is dating his own unmet needs, reflected in her eyes. And when those eyes look away, he crumbles, not because of who she was, but because she took his soul with her. And if this content is making sense to you, then click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Because this isn't about becoming bitter, it's about becoming aware. It's about ending the pattern that keeps turning love into collapse. You don't escape this pattern by becoming a better man on the surface. You escape it by becoming whole inside. You stop looking to women for initiation. You stop asking her gaze to make you real. You stop needing her approval to feel enough. Because once you integrate your anima, you don't need a woman to reflect your value. You see it in the mirror, and that changes everything. The real reason you're addicted to her, and it has nothing to do with love. You keep saying it's love. You call it a soul connection. You say she's different. You say something about her just feels right. But if you were honest, you'd admit something else. You're addicted to the way she makes you forget yourself. Because that's what it is. Not love, not destiny, not chemistry. Escape. You're not drawn to her because of who she is. You're drawn to her because of what you don't have to feel when she's around. Your shame, your loneliness, your unworthiness, your directionlessness. It all goes quiet, temporarily, in her presence. And that silence feels like peace, feels like meaning, feels like finally being seen. But it isn't. It's numbness mistaken for connection. It's projection wearing perfume. Carl Jung called this the seduction of the anima, not because the woman is seductive, but because your unconscious is. Your own unmet soul is showing up in her body. And instead of seeing that, you hand her your heart, not because she earned it, but because she represents what you haven't yet claimed inside yourself. So you start adapting. You text more. You explain yourself. You dim your fire. You bend. You twist. You offer more than you feel. And in return, she gives you glimpses of what you crave. A smile, a compliment, a moment of intimacy, and a taste of the warmth you never received as a boy. And then she pulls away, and you chase, not because of who she is, but because she now holds your emotional center. That's not love. That's psychic dependency. Here's the real reason it hurts so much when she leaves. Because she didn't just walk away, she took you with her. The man you thought you were when you were with her. The confident one, the chosen one, the whole one. You don't miss her, you miss him. The version of you that only seemed to exist when she was around. And that's why you fall apart. Because you didn't just lose a relationship, you lost the illusion of being complete. This is why Jung's work matters. He didn't teach men to seduce women. He taught them to reclaim themselves. Because until you do that, you'll keep trying to find your soul in someone else's eyes. And it will break you. Every single time. You'll call it passion. You'll call it fate. But it's really your inner fragmentation begging to be made whole. And the feminine, the real feminine, doesn't want your wounds. She wants your wholeness. Because only from there can love be real. Why the feminine will never respect the man who needs her to feel whole. Respect. It's not about dominance. It's not about charm. It's not even about being a good guy. The feminine, in her truest form, respects only one thing: clarity. And clarity is not what you say. It's how you live. It's who you are when no one's watching. A man who is unclear, who says one thing but feels another, who wants love but fears loss, who offers devotion but silently begs for validation. She feels it, not consciously, but in her body, in her nervous system, in her instinct. And the deeper truth? She cannot respect a man who makes her his center. Jung's insight wasn't just that men project their anima onto women, it's that women sense when they've been turned into a symbol, and they resent it, even if they can't explain why, even if they stay. Because no woman, no matter how radiant, wants to be your source of identity. If she's conscious, it's too much pressure. If she's unconscious, it becomes power she never asked for. And either way, respect erodes, because you cannot love someone you secretly depend on. This is the pattern. You meet her, you feel awakened, you pour everything in, your time, your attention, your desire, But it's not love, it's surrender, not the sacred kind, the needy kind. And when she senses that, she may play along, she may even reciprocate, but underneath it all, the dynamic has already broken. Because here's the law: the feminine does not surrender to the man who surrenders to her image. She can enjoy him, she can like him, but she will not trust him. She cannot soften into him. Why? Because how can she trust a man who is ruled by her? How can she relax into someone who collapses under her mood, her silence, her gaze? She cannot. And the more he gives to try to prove his worth, the more invisible he becomes, not because she's cruel, but because his presence was never his to begin with. This is the Anima trap again. You hand her your power. She doesn't want it, but now she holds it. And subconsciously she starts to resent you for giving it away. This is how good men end up discarded, not for lack of love, but for lack of sovereignty. Alan Watts once said, "The more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless." The man who clings to her as his lifeline will always feel lifeless in her presence, because he's trying to make her a structure when she was only meant to be a mirror, when her power terrifies you. And why that's exactly where your growth begins. There's a moment, maybe you felt it, you're with her, and something inside you shakes, not because she's yelling, not because she's cruel, but because she's clear, unapologetically herself, unmoved by your charm, unbothered by your strategies, able to hold her own, without needing you to center her. And suddenly, you're not sure who you are anymore, because what you used to offer, your validation, your presence, your attention, no longer feels enough to keep her close. That's not her fault. That's your initiation. Carl Jung taught that every man must face the part of the feminine that does not need him, because it is through her power that he finally meets his own. See, most men are fine with softness, with sweetness, with the feminine that nurtures, that smiles, that says yes. But the moment she tests you, the moment she reflects your confusion back to you with silence, you panic. You say she's cold. You say she's difficult. You say she's emotionally unavailable. But here's what really happened. She stopped mirroring your potential. She started mirroring your fragmentation. And that's when the Anima turns dark. Not because she is dark, but because she's showing you what you've avoided. Your indecision, your lack of leadership, your emotional dependency, your fear of being alone. She becomes the chaos you never confronted within, and instead of facing it, you blame her. This is the critical threshold. You can collapse. Again, you can call her toxic. You can walk away angry, tell your friends she was too much, or you can stay with the discomfort. You can ask yourself the one question most men avoid. What part of me is afraid of her clarity? Because that's the gateway. That's the door Jung tried to point toward, the place where your masculinity is no longer performance, but presence. When a man becomes solid in himself, when he can sit in the face of her power without trying to control it, seduce it, or run from it, that's when the polarity shifts. He stops being afraid of the feminine. He stops idolizing her. He stops resenting her. And he starts seeing her, not as a goddess, not as a mother, not as a mystery to decode, but as a reflection of everything he's reclaimed in himself. So the next time a woman's strength unsettles you, breathe. That's not rejection, that's your edge. Stay with it, because behind that fear is the man you've never fully met. And the woman in front of you, she's not your enemy. She's your initiation. Why your type is just a trauma pattern, and how to break it for good. She's just my type. You say it with certainty, like it's destiny, like your nervous system recognizes something ancient and real. But what it actually recognizes is familiar pain. Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So, when you keep falling for the same kind of woman, the emotionally distant one, the fiery, unpredictable one, the one who loves you one day and disappears the next, that's not chemistry, that's a complex, a loop, a pattern. one you didn't choose, but one you've been repeating your entire life. Let's call it what it is. You're not attracted to her. You're addicted to the emotional blueprint you learned in childhood. Maybe from the emotionally absent mother, the shaming teacher, the first girl who gave you affection, then took it away. It's not love you're craving. It's resolution. You keep reenacting the same wound, hoping this time you'll finally win, that this time she'll stay, that this time your presence will be enough to keep her warm. But it never is, because this isn't a romance. It's a replay, and no matter how many versions of her you meet, the story ends the same. Confusion, collapse, self-abandonment. This is the Anima trap in full swing. She doesn't just show up as fantasy. She shows up as familiar trauma, the kind that feels just enough like home to keep you hooked. And if you're unconscious, you'll keep calling it chemistry. But it's not. It's compensation. You're trying to fix the past by reliving it with someone new, and it will never work, because the solution was never external. So, how do you break the pattern? You stop asking, why do women keep doing this to me? And you start asking, why do I keep choosing this dynamic? You stop chasing validation. You stop begging for reassurance. You stop projecting your unclaimed soul onto women who can't hold it. You begin the descent, back into your own pain, back into your unmet grief, back into the version of you who never learned how to hold himself. And from there, from that inner reclamation, you start to choose differently. Not because you've leveled up, not because you've learned game, but because your nervous system has healed, and peace now feels more attractive than chaos. That's when the spell breaks. That's when your type becomes boring. When hot and cold starts to feel exhausting. When manipulation loses its thrill. When attention isn't enough to earn your devotion. That's when you stop reacting and start choosing. The final breakthrough, when you stop chasing women and start reclaiming your soul. There comes a moment, quiet, subtle, life-altering, where something inside you just stops. The need to prove, the urge to chase, the hunger to be seen, gone, not because you no longer care, but because you finally remembered who you are. This is the moment Jung called individuation, when the psyche returns to itself, when the projections fall, when the anima, instead of being cast outward, is brought back home. And when that happens, everything changes. You stop looking for depth in her mystery, because you've met your own. You stop craving her emotional waves, because you've learned to ride your own storms. You stop chasing her light, because you've found yours, steady and rooted. This is when love becomes real, not possession, not obsession, not projection, but presence. Two whole beings, meeting, choosing, not to complete, but to expand. You no longer date your unhealed self in another body. You no longer fall for someone who reflects your wounds. You stop calling chaos passion. You stop calling anxiety chemistry. You stop mistaking spiritual starvation for love. You meet the woman in front of you, not as a savior, not as a seductress, not as a fantasy, but as a person. And that is freedom. Because when you no longer seek in her what you haven't claimed in yourself, you don't need her to heal you. You simply allow her to walk beside you. Jung didn't teach this path for dating success. He taught it so you could reclaim your soul, so that you could stop handing your power to illusions, so that you could finally walk through the world whole. So if you've made it this far, and something in your chest feels like it's remembering, good, that's the point. If something deep inside you stirred while listening to this, don't scroll past it. This isn't just another video, it's a reflection, a transmission, a message that came not by accident, but by resonance. Carl Jung reminded us that we meet ourselves over and over again, often in the most unexpected places. Maybe this was one of those moments, a mirror, a pause, a quiet opening into who you've always been beneath the noise. If your soul feels seen here, write it. I let go. I align. I remember, not for attention, not for likes, but to speak directly to your own subconscious. Like this video, not for validation, but to embody the truth you just heard. Subscribe, not because you need more content, but because you're ready for deeper clarity, deeper healing, and deeper return. This isn't just a channel, it's a remembering space. A place where those who are done performing finally come home to themselves. And if you know someone who's still chasing everything except themselves, share this with them. Because, as Jung said, those who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken. And maybe, just maybe, this is your awakening. In a culture that glorifies doing, stillness is rebellion. In a world addicted to chasing, remembering is power. So pause, breathe, and trust this. You were never missing anything. You were only ever meant to return.